I'm going to show you how to prepare the selvages for 2 pieces of crochet that we will then single crochet together. This could be pieces that you've done for an Afghan or panels that you might be doing for an Afghan, or you could even use it for pillows or other things. Anytime you want to single crochet 2 pieces together and you really want the edges to look nice. I'll be using American crochet terminology throughout. I have blocked these 2 samples so they're nice and flat and they are the same length along the side edges where we're going to be joining them. The first thing I want to do, however, is make sure that I'm joining them with the right sides up. So not just right sides facing up, but I want to make sure I know where I started, where the foundation row is and where the top row is, because I want my stitches to all go the same way. Looking carefully at this, I can see that this texture stitch pattern, this is the bottom of the stitch and this is the top of the stitch. So this is the bottom of the swatch, this is the top of the swatch. But when I look at this wave stitch pattern, I notice that the stitches are going in this direction. So I want to turn it around. Now it just so happens that this stitch is a completely reversible stitch. The other thing I want to do then is make sure that I know which is the right side, or which I consider to be the right side, because I wove in my ends on the wrong side and I don't want them showing on the right side. So I want to make sure that this is indeed the right side. You may have marked yours so you know which is the right side. So now I'm going to begin with I'm going to call this my first panel. Normally I would pick up this same green color and work the single crochet selvage edge right onto this so it wouldn't be visible, but instead I'm going to use a gold so you can really see what it looks like. I want to start at the bottom right hand corner down here because I am right-handed. Left-handed crocheters are going to start here and work this direction, but I'm going to start here. I want the right side facing. I've put a slip knot on my hook and I'm just going to single crochet right into that very first stitch. So go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2 for my first standing single crochet. Now I'm going to work single crochet evenly along this edge. You will eventually be able to figure out where to put the stitches or how many stitches per row you'll need. Keep in mind that you don't want to work into the space. You want to work into the stitch itself. If your pattern tells you how many stitches you need, you can try that, but it's really better to just eyeball it based on your stitch and row gauge to see what's going to work. This stitch pattern was a row of double crochets and a row of alternating single and trebles. So I might work 2 single crochets into the side of each double row and 1 single crochet into the side of each of these pattern rows. I'll start with that and see if that's a good estimate of the number of stitches I'll need along this edge. As I say, these single crochets are very visible because I'm using a highly contrasting color. If I were not using this highly contrasting color, chances are you wouldn't even see them because they would just blend right in. After I've done a few stitches, I'm going to stop, put it down, and see if it seems to be lying flat. That seems to be pretty good. It's not pulling in and cupping, and it's not weaving or waving, so that looks pretty straight. So I'm just going to keep going with that. I've worked all the way along the edge here and stopped and looked at it, and I think that looks pretty flat and smooth, just the way I want it. So I want to count to see how many stitches I have, because I want to have the same number of stitches on each of the panels that I'll be working on, or each of the pieces. That's 22 stitches. So I'm going to make a note here so that I can remember how many stitches that is. Now, for now, I don't need that anymore. I will just cut it and fasten off and set it aside, ready to work this next panel, a similar edge along this panel. Now on this one, I'm going to be working, I need an edge on both sides because this is an outside panel, but this is going to be an inside panel. But to just show you how to put these two edges together, I'm going to start up here at the top corner because I'm right-handed and I'm going to work in this direction. Left-handers would start down here and work this way. Again, I would probably on this one use the purple because it would blend in a little bit better, but I want you to be able to see this. So begin with a standing single crochet. I know that I want 22 stitches along here, and I can do a tiny bit of math to help me figure out what rate to pick up along this edge. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 rows, and I need 22 stitches. If I reach over here to my calculator and divide 22 by 15, I get 1.46, so like 1.5. What that tells me is I'm going to probably pick up about 1 stitch in some rows and 2 stitches in other rows, and that works out very nicely in this pattern because I have tall rows and short rows here at the edge. So I think I'll just go ahead and pick 2 stitches up in the tall rows and 1 stitch up in the shorter rows, and we'll see what happens. Notice again, I'm working into the stitch itself, not into the space between the stitches. That was a tall row and it got 2 stitches. Here's a short row, it gets 1. Another thing I'm doing, I had floats here, and I want to catch these floats that went from one row to another underneath my hook when I'm doing that. So I'm capturing the floats within this seam or within this edge. When I'm getting about 2/3 of the way through, I want to stop and look at what I've done and take stock of whether this has been the right pickup rate for this particular swatch. It looks like it has. This is going pretty straight across. It's not bowing in or flaring out. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 stitches. Let's see what's going to happen. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So that's going to land me right where I want it to be with 22 stitches. Doing that little bit of math that I did at the beginning helps me not have to rip out again. I can cut and fasten off. I'm going to turn and do the same thing for the other side because both sides of this swatch or this panel need to have an edge. Now I have my 2 pieces. I went ahead and did another edging row along this side, but I used the dark green, and you can see how much better that looks than the gold does because it really blends in more with the stitch pattern, but you'll be able to see the gold a little bit better. Now that we have both of these finished with a row of single crochet along the selvage, it will be easy to seam them together. I'm going to hold them with right sides together. So this is a right side, this is a right side. I'm going to put them with right sides together like this and then pick them up. And you can see the right sides are facing. I'll start with another strand. I'll use gold again. If I'd wanted to, I could have left one of these super long, but I didn't do that. I don't mind weaving in ends. You may find it helpful, especially if you're working on a long piece, to pin the ends and the center and maybe a few more places together to make sure you end up just at the right place. And you can match stitch for stitch as you do that, just to keep from getting off track. I don't do that usually for a short piece like this, but for a long Afghan strip, I would pin it in several places just to keep from getting cattywampus. That's a good word, cattywampus. Put the hook through both loops of both stitches. So I'm going into that first stitch right there, and I've got the original loop on my hook plus 4 because I've gone under the V of both the front and the back piece. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, and single crochet. And I will do that all the way across. This should be pretty easy crocheting because you took the time to get those edges nice and even with that single crochet row. When I get to my pin, ideally, that's the next stitch and they're both matched up, so I can take the pin out. And here at the end of the row, that matches up right here with the last stitch. And we've got our single crochet together seam. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off here. We're looking at the wrong side first, and you'll notice it does make a ridge. It may be that you decide you like this ridge and you want that to show up on the right side, which is perfectly fine. You can decide to single crochet the seams together with wrong sides together, and that would make this ridge show up on the right side. But let's flip it over and see what it looks like on the right side of our fabric. Now remember, I used the gold, so it looks a little jaggedy here because you're seeing the difference between the gold and the green, which really shows up. If I had used the green on this side and used the dark green on this side, this seam would look a lot smoother, but the seam itself looks very nice. I'm going to do the same thing on another piece, and we'll see what that looks like with a darker color that blends in a little bit better. I've put my single crochet edge along both sides of this swatch using the green, and you can see it blends in just perfectly. You can't even see it. So let's see what happens when we do another seam, this time with the same color, and see what our results are. I've got my seam going along here, and I came out right where I wanted it to, and here's what it looks like on the right side, and you see how lovely that looks on the right side when you use the same color or similar color. If you'd like more crochet instruction like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out the links in the video notes for other ways you can find me. Thanks for watching.